The mineralized remains of animal plants and as organisms or as artifacts such as the footprint. To totality of fossil and placement of fossil reference and fossil contained rock formation of sedimentary layers or strata is known as the fossil records. The study of fossil is called paleontology. By the way, the word fossil derived from the which means having been dug up. Fossils usually consist of traces or remains of organisms itself. However, fossils may also consist of the marks left behind by organisms where they arrive, such as a footprint of fishes or dinosaurs or reptiles. These types of fossils are called trace fossils as opposed to body fossils. Finally, the past life leaves some evidence that can be seen but can be detected as a form of chemical signals. These are known as chemical fossils for lack of a better term. The fossilization is actually a rare occurrence because the natural materials tend to decompose and be recycled. In order to form or to be fossilized, it remains normally to be recovered as soon as possible. There are several different types of fossil and fossilization processes. The detailed explanation was handled by gave you last week. Do you have a question about any of them? No? Okay then. Let's take a closer look at some of them. Okay, class. What is permineralization? Permineralization is this process consists of literally turning organisms into stones that are only covered by soon after death or after the initial decay process. Once covered with sediment, these layers slowly compact to rock, and chemical remains slowly replaced by hard minerals. As the organism continues to decay slowly, water-infused mineral passes through it, replacing the chemical and with rock materials. The degree of which remains decayed recovered determines the rate of detail of the fossil. Therefore, while some fossils only contain skeletal remains or teeth, others contain traces of skin, feathers, or even soft tissues. Now let's talk about the trace fossils next. Trace fossils are those detailed preserved rocks and are indirect evidence of life as it were, with the most relatively spectacular fossil of far-apart remains such as shells and bones. Trace fossils are often less dramatic, but nonetheless very important. They are mainly borrowed footprints, eggs and shells, nests and droppings. Among them, coprolites, the fossilized fishes, are very important because they can give insight into the feeding behavior of animals. Another thing is that the study of remains are also very challenging since many cannot fossil assigned for the specific order. Further, trace remains such as bone can make the work for entirety and geologists more difficult because the older strata are easily mixed with younger ones. This can cause some confusion and interpretation unless you can context. Two main kinds of trace molds and casts, right? Who can explain them? A cast fossil is a fossil that retains the shape of the original object. The dinosaur bones are the usual of the cast fossil are varied or rapid. The chances are good and even impression of soft tissue remain. A cast is a 3D example of an object of the past, creating a model film that is the sediment of volcanic ash. A mold fossil is like an impression. The original objects they are no longer there, but known in shape is. Fossilized footprint and many plants are preserved at most fossil mold forms and removed by decomposition of pulled out leaving impression of the object. Good. Okay then. Let's talk about the pseudo fossil and the transitional fossil, shall we? I know there are confusing. Let's see the definition first. Debbie? Okay. Pseudofossil is an inorganic object, marking or impression that might be mistaken as a fossil. These are regular patterns of rocks which are produced by natural occurring processes. These pseudofossils can be formed by natural cracks of the cuticule by the parting of minerals. They can easily be mistaken for real fossil. Why is that? Because sometimes the mineral plastic can mimic life form by forming what appears to be life, highly detailed or organized structure. They can be very misleading. Good, good. He must have seen a crystal of the frost in the window before. When crystal grows, they form a tree-like shape, and this type of mirror mass found in the similar realm are sometimes thought to be fossil, and is occasionally one contains fossil, but they are neither not fossils themselves. But those call themselves fossils. Pseudo-fossil means for fossils. You know, pseudonym is pseudonym, and pseudo-interaction are the real thing. And that's good to know such a species around are looking like and tricking you and seeing reason. Likewise, we need to know about the pseudo-fossil mistaken for the real stuff. As you see in the photo in page 94, anybody with a lot of experience will take it imprint of the firm. You never guess that this is inorganic. What you're looking at is this oxidized manganese grown in the prime between layer of sandstone. The facing phase there looks standard beach, doesn't it? From this photo, you can easily see the cracks, bumps, gas bubbles, and such can be difficult to distinguish from true fossils. So debates about whether they are pseudo or true fossil can be long and difficult. For example, a certain complex rock we found some rocks is thought of algae for a long time until it was identified as a resin robots. Okay, as long as we are confusing topic, why don't we look at the transitional fossils? A transitional fossil is a fossil remains a creature to trace or more evolved or derived from or related on them. According to relational theory, transitional form represents an evolutionary stage. That's right. When there is the origin of species or fossil powers, the fossil record wasn't well known, and the claim that the record of transitional fossil were perfectly reasonable. However, only 2 years later, Archaeopteryx, which is considered by many to be a first bird, was discovered and the stunning triumph of the Darwin's theory of common descent. Similarly, our St. Charles Marsh had Peabody Museum provided groundbreaking evidence of the transitional fossil in the evolution of fossils. This is being considered one of the best examples of the clear However, anti-evolutionists and creationists argue that the many gaps in the fossil records do exist are evidence that the cuts about the theory of evolution.